Well, here it is, everybody. The day you've been waiting for. The day the whole world has been waiting for. The day of the big decision. No, not the election. We don't do politics on here. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also happen to offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates that I hope you'll check out as well. The NFL's trade deadline. Yeah, come on, man. It's Pittsburgh. This is what we talk about here, even with the presidential candidates having pretty much lived here for several months now because we're apparently running for president of Pittsburgh rather than the president of the United States. They were both here again yesterday, too, of course. 4 p.m. is the time, meaning the actual deadline, and Omar Khan's got between whenever it is that you're hearing this show and then to get the Steelers what exactly? I'll tell you what surprised me, and not a lot does as it relates to this fan base, but I have sensed no small amount of satisfaction, outright satisfaction, with the non-George Pickens wide receivers on this roster of late. It started a little bit with the Jets game, and then it really took off with the Giants game, and that coinciding with Calvin Austin having the game of his life. And I appreciate that when you have Russell Wilson out there as quarterback for the first time. Russ shows a little bit better ball distribution, seeing the field, using everybody. It's easy to think, and maybe even be right, that all that Cal and Van ever needed was to have somebody else at quarterback finding them when they're open. But this sentiment, and it's everywhere that I see, hear, and read anyway, that if Omar Khan had just one trade to make, if he was just limited to one, that he should make it for a right tackle rather than a second or third wide receiver on the depth chart. And I got to tell you, I'm not in line with either of those. Sorry, I'm just not. I'm going to keep stressing when it comes to the other wide receiver, the one that the Steelers have needed to acquire for some time, that this hypothetical individual isn't needed nearly as much to provide depth or an alternative, but to be able to replace Pickens if he goes down. And I know nobody wants to think about that stuff. It's, you want to turn around and knock on wood or whatever, or why would you even bring that up? Hey, this is what sports executives do for a living. They're in the constant state of planning for your worst case scenario. It's probably the number one thing on their list, if not the only thing on their list when it comes to in-season moves. You're either replacing someone who's already gone down, or you're bracing for if it does happen. Now, nobody's ever all the way prepared. You can even say something like, well, if TJ Watt were to get hurt, then you still have Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig, and you'd figure it out, even though they're both more comfortable on the right side. You can say if Najee Harris goes down, you got Jaylen Warren, or vice versa. You can do that at most positions. Not all, but most. Except George. You just don't have another WR1 type. You're not going to threaten anybody, and I say this with immense respect and actually love, because I just love Calvin Austin and his personality and really everything about him. But you're not going to target Cal 10, 12 times a game. And if you do, Cal's going to be brought down for a gain of about 0.5 yards on almost all of those. You'd stop being able to stretch the field out. You'd allow opponents to resume stacking the box, something that they're only just now beginning to get away from, finally, after 5 years of it. And again, with respect to the touchdown catch that Cal had the other day, you're not going to beat opponents over the top with him very often. That was a perfect pass by Russ. Great route by Cal. Even better call than all of that, I believe, by Arthur Smith. and just not something that you can count on week after week. Whereas with George, you can count on that every other play if you want it, or at least if you want to try it. Go get this individual. I've been saying for a while now, it doesn't need to be a name brand. It doesn't need to be a true WR1. It just needs to be somebody who's closer to that than what you have currently. And as for right tackle, you could feel free to throw something at the TV with the first sack that Broderick Jones gives up Sunday in Landover. But my belief is that this offense won't be all it can be until Broad gets right. He's enormous. He is supremely athletic for his size. He does not have a desire or a want-to issue. He lapses out occasionally. He's lost some confidence. All of that can come back. And it's incumbent on all concerned to do that. It can't happen if he's standing on the sideline because you got some whatever guy in a mediocre trade. I'm standing by Broad, at least until I can't do it anymore. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from Sean. It says, DK, the NFL's killing itself. Tackling is now a penalty. You have to two-hand touch the quarterback, and even that's iffy. Fans have to sit through 2 months of terrible football on every night of the week. Why try to please people, soccer moms and hippies who never liked the game to begin with? Quit ruining the game to please the moms. Take care of us diehards. After I got your question last night, Sean, it occurred to me that there were a couple more that came in this same spirit. And I was trying to think if there was anything that occurred in that Kansas City game last night that would have set this off. And I don't think there was. I watched it. I just didn't see anything that would have led to this reaction. So if it was something maybe over the weekend or whatever, I don't know. But you were not the only one to bring this up. So please know that this response isn't going just to you, but to everybody who wrote on this subject. First off, the NFL isn't doing this for, let me find how you worded it, soccer moms and hippies. The NFL is doing this because the NFL's experienced a couple of very real health issues. One, boy, and I would really hope we're past the stage where we're disputing whether or not this exists, is concussions, is CTE, is the well-being of the players after they're done playing, how they live the rest of their lives with their families. And take this from someone who also covers the NHL, I find it uplifting to see a league that acknowledges the existence of concussions and CTE rather than attempting to bury that to avoid class action lawsuits. The NFL isn't great at this yet, but the NFL has real protocol in place and has made real adjustments to both the rules and even to the playing equipment or the practicing equipment or the volume of practices, the amount of contact in practices. Now, if you're one of those people, and I'm not saying you are, Sean, but if you are, and you say, well, these guys signed up for this, they know what they're doing, and we're going to treat them like the Romans treated the gladiators, and let's just see if the lion eats them or not, we're not going to agree at all. Am I biased because of getting to know these guys? Getting to appreciate who they are as people, in some cases meeting their families? Yeah, I'll admit that. But I'm okay with that. It doesn't seem like it should be some way out there stance. And the other factor in this, and this is nowhere near as high-minded or noble, these owners are paying a ton of money to the quarterbacks. these owners, and, in concert with that, the general managers and others, are committing a quarter of their payroll to a single individual. And if that individual takes more hits than they need to, even if they might seem small or whatever on a replay, you get your head knocked around enough, there's going to be damage done. And when these owners, and again, the GMs and everybody else, lose this player, for all intents and purposes, unless you happen to have the magic backup sitting around, your season's done. You're toast. And in some cases, like what's obviously happening in Miami with the on-again, off-again career of Tua Tagovailoa, you don't even know if that player's going to play anymore. And it's not right to compare that position to every other position, because this is the only position in which an individual is holding the football on every single snap and thus is a constant target, including in some cases after the pass has been thrown. There should be special rules for that individual, just like there's a special rule for the long snapper and how they can be attacked on a field goal try. No one complains about that one. But the league correctly found out that this was something that puts that player in danger, so they addressed it. And nobody talked about anybody wearing a skirt or any other misogynistic remarks like that. They just said, okay, yeah, well, that's just the new rule. But when you do it to the quarterback, it's always, they're killing the sport. They're making it unwatchable and whatever other stuff. And Sean, I'm trying to be nice here, but no, they actually aren't. The NFL has never been more popular than it is. It's never been watched by more people on more platforms. And if you think the NFL's entertainment level is low after some of the amazing stuff that just happened this weekend alone, I don't know what to say to you. I just don't. I appreciate the question from you and from others. Nonetheless, I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Steelers. Oh, and hey, important note. Today's Double Shot show, because of the trade deadline, will be coming your way an hour later than usual. That's 5 p.m. Eastern. Because obviously we'd have no reason to do a show talking about stuff and then the Steelers make a bunch of last-minute deals and the show just goes poof instantly. So we're going to wait until we see what the Steelers have or have not done. Ideally, there's a have.